Okay, so now we're going to go over how to solve equations that have variables on both sides. So if you look at the first page in the packet and we look at number 1, this says solve 2x plus 4 equals x plus 7. So this is something some of you have not seen before, where you have a variable on both sides. We can think of this as 2x. We don't know what x is. So these little bags have something in them, and that's x. Plus, I have 4 little blocks. So it's 2x plus 4 on this side. And I just have 1x on this side and 7 blocks. Now, if I took away these 4 blocks, well, let's not take away those 4 blocks. If I took away just this bag, if I remove that bag, then I'd remove 1 bag from this side. And I'd be left with x plus 4 equals 7. And that's what I have here. I took away 1 bag from both sides. So I got rid of an x, and I only have 1x on one side. And you know from here to just subtract 4, and I end up with x equals 3. So when you have a variable on both sides, your goal is to now get rid of the variable on one of the sides, because we only want one variable on one side. So if we look at this next equation, we have a 4x here and a 9x here. I want to get rid of one of them. I'm allowed to get rid of either one that I want. And really, it depends on whether you want to end up with an x on the left-hand side or you want to end up with a positive variable. So one way to do it, and I'm going to do it both ways, is to say, okay, I'm going to get rid of 4x from this side, which means I have to subtract 4x from that side. I'm left with 15 on the left. 9x minus 4x is 5x. These cancel out, minus 5. And that's going to be easy because now I add 5 and I get 20 equals 5x. Divide by 5, x equals 4. So that's one way to do it. But another way to do it is to say, okay, I'm starting with 15 plus 4x equals 9x minus 5. I'm going to get rid of 9x from both sides instead of getting rid of 4x. So now I'm left with 15 minus 5x equals negative 5. I subtract 15 from both sides. And I get negative 5x equals negative 20. Divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5, x equals 4. So either way, I end up with x equals 4. And my two options were either I subtract 4x from both sides or I subtract 9x from both sides. So now let's look at the next one. So here I have a negative 10x and I have a positive 4x. And I want to zero out one of these. So my two options, and I won't do both at the same time, but either I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides to make this side 0, or I'm going to add 10x to both sides to make that side 0. Now, we're obviously not going to do both. So let's say we're going to add 10x to both sides so I can zero out the x's from this side. I'm left with negative 3 equals, and now I have to add 10x here, 25 plus 14x. I then subtract 25, and I get negative 28 equals 14x. Divide by 14, x equals negative 2. So remember, we got that as an answer when we added 10x to both sides. And let's see if the other way will give us the same answer. So instead of adding 10x to both sides, now I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides because I have the choice. This becomes negative 3 minus 14x equals 25. This cancels out. Now I'm going to add 3 and add 3. And I get negative 14x equals positive 28. Divide by negative 14, divide by negative 14. And again, x equals negative 2. So either way, I end up with the same answer. So let's go over what exactly we do when we have a variable on both sides. So the first thing we do always is simplify both sides of the equation. That means get rid of parentheses by distributing and combining like terms. Once we do that, we look and we see if we have a variable on both sides. If we have a variable on both sides, we want to get the variable on one side. So that means we're going to either add or subtract variables to either side. Then we isolate the variable. So let's look at number 4. So number 4, I say 4x minus 12 equals 6x plus 18. Now I could either subtract 4x from both sides, or I could subtract 6x from both sides. I'm going to subtract 4x, and I get negative 12 equals 2x plus 18. Now I'm going to subtract 18, and I get negative 30 equals 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X equals negative 15. Now to check that, I say 4 times negative 15, which is negative 60, minus 12, which is negative 72. Does that equal 6? And what's negative 15 plus 3? Negative 12. What's 6 times negative 12? Negative 72. So check, it worked. Okay, so let's turn the page. I have to. Okay, so now we're going to try to do 4 and 5, and then 6a, 6b, 6c, 6d, and 7. Okay, so you can stop the video. I'm going to be doing 4, 5, 6a, b, c, d, and 7, and you can start the video after you've done each problem to see if you get it correct. Okay, so for number 4, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute, and 3/4 times 4d, the 4's cancel out, I get 3d, and 3/4 times 8, I get 6. So I've distributed now, and I notice I have a variable on both sides. I can either subtract 6d from both sides, or I can subtract 3d from both sides. I'm going to subtract 3d from both sides, and I get 3d minus 6 equals 6. Then I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and I get 3d equals 12. Divide by 3, d equals 4. For the next one, first I'm going to distribute. Negative 3x minus 3 equals negative 2x minus 8. I can either add 3x to both sides, or I can add 2x to both sides. Doesn't matter what you do, I'm choosing to add 2x to both sides. Negative x minus 3 equals negative 8. Now I'm going to add 3 to both sides. I get negative x equals negative 5. Divide by negative 1, and x equals 5. Okay. Now, let's look at 6a. So, this is 3b plus 7 equals 8b plus 2. I can either subtract 8b from both sides, or I can subtract 3b from both sides. I get 7 equals 5b plus 2. Subtract 2 from both sides. 5 equals 5b. Divide by 5, divide by 5. b equals 1. For the next one, I can either subtract 2b from both sides or 5b from both sides. I get negative 3 equals negative 3b plus 6, minus 6 minus 6. Negative 9 equals negative 3b. So if negative 9 equals negative 3b, and I divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, b equals 3. And then for 6c, notice I'm going to multiply both of these by 1/2, because by multiplying I get rid of the fraction. So I get 2x plus 1 equals 3x plus 7. And I subtract 2x, 1 equals x plus 7 minus 7 minus 7, x equals negative 6. Now, something else I could have done with this is I could have multiplied this by 2 and this by 2. Remember, I don't touch the grandchildren, so I get 4x plus 2 equals 6x plus 14. Then, if I subtract 4x from both sides, I get 2 equals 2x plus 14. If I subtract 14, I get 2x equals negative 12, and I'd end up with the same answer. Okay. So the last one we're going to do is number 7. And number 7 looks simple, but it's a little tricky. Okay. So let's just erase all this. Okay, so for number 7, I'm going to add x to both sides. Now, many people find this confusing because they're like, well, negative x plus x is 0, and they don't want to put a 0 on both sides. But it's fine to put a 0 on one of the sides. So now I'm going to subtract 20, and I get 10x equals negative 20. Divide by 10, divide by 10. X equals negative 2. Something else you could have done is we could have said, okay, I'm uncomfortable ending up with 0 on the right-hand side. Well, then subtract 9x from both sides. And we end up getting 20 equals negative 10x. Divide by negative 10, divide by negative 10. You still get x equals negative 2. Okay? So that's the end of this video.